Salvē, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 5, verses 19 through 20. But first, last time in John chapter 5, here's our rubric, everything that we look for as we go through the text. Let's go ahead and get started. Amen, amen, dico vobis, non potest filius a se facere, quicquam nisi quod videret patrem facientem quaecumque enim ille fecerit, haec et filius similiter facit. Pater enim diligit filium et omnia demonstrat, quae ipse facit et maiora his demonstrabit, ei opera ut vos miramini. That was a bit of a mouthful. Notably, as I think I may have mentioned at the end of the previous Latin video, this is actually 19b in the Greek. The first half of the verse is missing because it was included in verse 18. But whatever. Amen, amen. That comes from the Hebrew, which I'm probably going to get not entirely correct. That, I think, amen means I agree, may it be so. So usually people translate it truly, or I just leave it as it is, or include both of them. Dico, so they are technically verbs. They would be jussive, jussive is what it's called for Hebrew. I'm pretty sure. It's been a while since I've looked at them. But we leave them alone basically as exclamations. Dico, that's first person singular, don't need to parse that. Vobis with dico is going to be the dative plural. Non potest, est right there, the third person singular of the sum form on this irregular verb. So pretty easy. And then filius with that us right there, our subject, quite clearly. A preposition with se as its object. Facere can't be the object, the prepositional phrase, so that closes there. Potest needs an infinitive as its object, which is what we see here with the re on this verb. And then quicquam is going to be the object in turn of our infinitive right here. Present, active. And then this one we know the case because it is built off of quisquid, but the D has turned into a C before a Q. So this is a nominative or accusative singular neuter. Accusative because it's being taken as the object of an infinitive. And I forgot to actually say what type of prepositional statement we've got going on here with a taking the ablative of se. This is source or origin of ability to do something. And then quicquam is the word for anything. Moving on to our next clause, we got a nisi, so a exceptional clause, a unless clause. Quod from qui quae quod. This is going to be the object of videret right here. Erit, we have our two options. The third singular, either the perfect tense or the future perfect tense. If it is perfect tense, then it is active and subjunctive, which makes sense with nisi, so that's what it's going to be, or active and indicative. You almost never see future perfects. I almost never see future perfects, not even in my nightmares. They wouldn't actually scare me. Other things would. So perfect is the correct one here with nisi. Those two together. Patrem, em right there as our accusative, singular, masculine. Facientem, our nt right there off of the present stem faci with the e vowel connecting the ending to our stem. Em to match the case of patrem, present, active participle. We've got a que right there, so connecting two clauses, and we should know that it's two clauses because we've also got enim, which is a post-positive word, has to be the second word in a given clause. So I'm going to hold off on that. This is our object, and neuter again, and I'll join you momentarily. In our next clause, we have the perfect stem ending of feki, as opposed to the present, which we had right there. ERIT, again, we've got either the perfect or future perfect. Since we already have a perfect subjunctive with the nisi, another perfect subjunctive would be the most since. So I'm going to write down both of them still. And we'll come back to that. Ile from ile, ela, elod are nominative, singular, masculine subject. And this is the demonstrative that is normally used in Latin to refer to an object that is further away, or when you're going to be changing subjects from who your previous subject was. So we had the sun as our subject up to this point. If John wanted to refer back to the sun doing this verb right here, then he would use hic, haec, hoc for the closer demonstrative. But since he's switching it to a different subject, that being patram, that's why we have ile. Quaecumque, we have ae right there. It can't be our nominative because we already have the nominative in the demonstrative, and then it would be feminine, not matching the demonstrative still. So instead what we've got is we've got the accusative, plural, neuter form, again from quis quid. You recall in the plural it becomes qui. Actually, I don't remember if the interrogative. Yeah, interrogative goes back to the pattern of the just normal relative pronoun. So with the cum added on or the quam added on, it should just go to qui, quai, quai. Yeah, I think that's what it is. As with all things. I haven't looked at it in ages. Too busy. Much, much too busy. Moving on into our next clause. At haec, filius, subject right there, with our verb right here. No need to parse either of those. We've seen before. Haecs, we're going to be referring back to quaecumque. So it is also an accusative, plural, neuter. And then similiter, we've got our iter ending right here, which is what we put onto third declension adjectives to turn them into adverbs, unless it's the type of third declension adjective that already ends in a T, in which case it's just ER that you put there. So this is similis, simile. We delete the case ending and then stack iter right on the end. So adverb, meaning likewise. Quick note, failure on my part to recognize something. The que, this is not a conjunction. It is part of the word itself. Quaecumque, it's a three-part word all bunched together, and it means whatever. So that and was in error, as was the mark right there in error. My apologies. Moving on into verse 20, we've got another post-positive enim. Pater is in our subject form there, so we don't need to parse that. This is diligo, which we've seen beforehand. It right there for the third person singular. This is diligo, diligere, dilexi. So we have the present stem with that G, and it's active and indicative. And as you recall, the way that John uses this is the Latin word that typically refers to our Greek agape, which is the divine love, the love that a father has for his son, as opposed to filial love, not filial love because that's Latin, rather than to philia love, which is the love that a friend or a brother has for a brother, which is which amo really ought to be used for, though it isn't always. I think there are 3 instances in John where Jerome translates agapo as amo, but almost all the rest of the instances are diligo. So there's that for you. So loves, filium, right there for accusative, singular, masculine object. Et, introducing new clause with omnia and demonstrat, a new verb there. At for our ending, third singular. This is demonstro, demonstrare, so it's a first conjugation, therefore present stem, active and indicative. That's not a subjunctive A. So it means what it looks like. So, and he shows in the indicative. Omnia, IA right there for accusative, plural, neuter. Going back to quaecumque, hike, so on and so forth. A from is, you've seen this enough times, don't need to parse it, it's just the indirect object. Quae, new clause, we'll get to that in a moment. I'll write down what we have so far. Moving on, we have quae, again from qui, quae, quod, or quis, quid. AE is going to be the same form as hike, and beforehand is quaecumque. Don't need to parse that. Ipse, we've also seen beforehand, this is the self pronoun, so he himself. It shows him he himself. This would have to be still the father because it's closer referent. Otherwise, we would need something other than ille or a repetition of son here to change subjects. Nominative, singular, masculine. Don't need to parse that. Maiora, so this comes from, does it mean greater? Magnus, magna, and then we've got maior, maius for the neuter. With this A, we have our accusative, plural, neuter, and this is a comparative adjective. The superlative like magnissimos, I think. Comp. His with a comparative adjective is going to be ablative of comparison rather than dative as our other option. Not singular, plural, and we don't really have an indication of the gender on this, but note that maiora is pointing forward to opera, opus opera, another accusative, plural, neuter, as the noun that maiora is modifying. Then these things, it's probably going to be neuter because it's going back to omnia or hike, quaecumque, and it's also a unspecified idea. It is talking about tangible things, but it's still unspecified, so that would typically be neuter. And then demonstrabit, we have our bit right there for the third person singular future tense. It is also active, and it is indicative. A, again, indirect indirect object, the referent of the verb of showing in this case. Ut as a purpose or a result clause, so with the result that vos, nominative, plural, and it's there's neither masculine nor feminine because it refers generally to men or women. Mera mini, we have mi in I here, a passive ending of the second person of is not the way to talk about it. Second person plural, though, is the correct way to talk about this. This comes from miror. Mirari. But then we got that E there. And what the E is doing is it's applying the subjunctive with ut. And miror as a first conjugation deponent with the phrase, we beat a giant, or I forget what the other one is. Because I think I'm the only one I know who uses we beat a giant other than the people I learned the language with. I know I can't remember the more common way that people talk about it. But anyway, with first conjugation is the we, so we have an E in there. So then that's how it works out. A changes into E here, but it's still the present stem. It is deponent, as I've said, but subjunctive. And I think we've got enough that I can write all this down. So there we have that. I don't remember if this is the end of Jesus' speech, so I'm not going to put any closing quote marks, but let's take a look at this in its own context. Amen, amen, I say to you, the Son is not able from himself to do anything except what he has seen Father doing. For whatever things that one has done, these also Son likewise does. For Father loves, adores, steadfastly loves, because this is agape is connected to chesed in Hebrew. Son, and all things he shows him, what things he himself does, and greater works than these he will show him, so that you may marvel. As for chesed, that sin, sheen, or the other one. Nuts. Neither sin nor sheen, but samek. There's that kind of weird backwards cursive S looking circle. Oh, and then there's this caret. And I don't really know what the caret does. Something to do with how it reads metrically or tonally if you're chanting it. But there we have that. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a very good day. Wale.